All right, Hack Redcon. Leno back again, and this is going to be one of my favorite podcasts of the entire conference. With me, I have Jake from BC Security, and if you're not familiar with BC Security, then you've been living under a rock for at least the last 2 or 3 years. This is the company that has brought us in my opinion, one of the best offensive tools for Microsoft out there. Started off as PowerShell Empire. They turned around and just made it the Empire. Jake, welcome to the chair. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Thanks. I appreciate all the good things you're saying about the C2. So yeah, we run the open source Empire project. As you mentioned, it went from PowerShell Empire to more of a .NET Empire. Now we've actually started expanding it to just kind of be Empire because Anthony just introduced a Go agent. So we now have unmanaged agents. So we're no longer just .NET. So there's a lot of capability that's been in there. And then just like background for me, I'm actually like our embedded systems expert. I started off doing astronautical engineering. So like working on rocket motors and stuff for the Air Force.
You know, it's not rockets. Oh wait, yeah, it is.
Yeah. And then I was at a unit where Congress passed a requirement that all weapon systems go through cyber testing. I walked in, they're like, "You're our new cyber expert." So,
don't you love it how that happens? You know, today you're a rocket scientist, and tomorrow, congratulations, you're cyber. Welcome to the program. Get ready and hit the ground running.
But yeah, so I got to plan and execute the first like cyber test against the F-22 and like the F-15, and so yeah, it was very cool. It was a very cool job, and that got me started. And then I loved cyber so much that I decided to make it full time, and went to Boeing and worked on their airplanes doing cybersecurity stuff, and then clean sheet design. So all DoD, I wasn't involved in any of
of course not
a 737 Max or anything.
No, definitely not the Max. Jake had nothing to do with that one.
And then we started BC Security, and I've been doing that full time for a while now. So
that is amazing. You know, you always hear those stories about, you know, there's 2 ways to get into cyber. Well, apparently there's a 3rd way, because I've always heard, you know, you can go to college or you can be a criminal like me, but apparently you can just get nominated and there you go. Yeah. So apparently you are the 3rd path that nobody's ever heard of.
Yeah, military is really good at volunteering you to go do new things.
Oh, well, in that case, thank you for your service. Oh my. How was that experience? I mean, how did you handle going from, you know, and I'm assuming you were probably somewhat security conscious beforehand. I mean, but how was that transition?
Yeah, I had actually not gotten myself into too much trouble, but I'd done some minor hacking in high school and stuff, gotten a little bit of trouble there, pranking, that kind of stuff, you know, back in the days when you could get system on Windows XP by changing the screensaver to cmd.exe, kind of easy things.
The good old days. You know, I miss those. So I love to ask people who sit down here, what is the earliest tech that you actually interface with?
Earliest, Windows 95 would probably be the first thing that I remember.
Okay.
And then Windows XP was the first thing that I messed around with. I did write like one piece of malware, which was a batch file that like deleted safe mode off of the computer, and then like installed itself in the startup folder to kill the computer so you can no longer use it. But,
yeah, cause don't you miss the days where you could pull that stuff off? I mean, now there's so many, you know, DRM. I mean, just throw anything at you that you want at it. Yeah. We had it so easy back then.
I know, didn't know.
Yeah, we didn't know how good we had it until, you know, God, look at this today, 2025. We've got AI, ML, you know, the world's on fire. It's crazy. I miss the simplicity of just being able to hack with a bash script. I mean, is that too much to ask?
Well, you just got to come over to the embedded systems side. It's still largely like that on a lot of things.
So how did you get involved with Empire? I want to, you know, I'm not going to lie. We're going to spend a lot of time on Empire because, as I said, this is actually, in my opinion, one of the top C2s for Microsoft.
Yeah, so Empire is an interesting story because not only is it how did we get into Empire, but it's also kind of the impetus behind how BC Security became like a real company.
Oh, so we get a 2 for 1.
So
come on. So for anybody that, you know, as he said, Empire was basically a product originally called PowerShell Empire, and it was basically an open source project out on GitHub. So how did that turn into what it is today?
Yeah, so It started off being built by Spectre Ops, who I'm sure most people listening have heard of them. They do tons of offensive research and publish it for the community. It's really awesome. Anthony and I had gotten started with BC Security, mostly to do research, because Anthony had given a talk at DEF CON, and I just gotten into the security industry through the military, and I really wanted to try and get to have like that life goal of being a DEF CON speaker. So we were doing some research.
It's a hell of a great goal to have too. I mean,
and I get to do it this summer. Actually, we got picked up for a main stage talk at
congratulations!
DEF CON this year, so we're very excited.
So you're going to be doing a shot in Vegas.
Yeah, I'm very excited. It's going to be on solar power stuff, hacking
amazing.
whole solar inverters and stuff.
So get this. If you're at DEF CON, you're hearing it here first. This is going to be a talk that is absolutely worth seeing. So make sure that you check your agenda in the Hacker Tracker and make sure you find out where and when. And if you have to, this is one of those talks that I think is worth getting in line at least a talk and a half early for.
Yeah. But so Anthony we'd been doing some research. The research we did was taking like open source C2s because at that time, Empire, it wasn't old in the sense that like no one was using it anymore, but it had been open source. Yeah, it wasn't, they hadn't been pushing a lot of updates to it anymore because they'd moved on to like Covenant and a couple other C2s. Mm-hmm. It's something that we've started as a starting principle for us. Like the offensive security industry tends to focus on the shiny penny.
Absolutely.
And, I've always been interested in obfuscation. So we did some research because I had a contact that had just installed Darktrace at their company. And so we kind of negotiated with them like, hey, we'll come do a free pen test if you let us publish, like we'll anonymize it, but let us publish the research on using some frameworks against Darktrace since it was like brand new and all the AI ML model stuff.
Right.
And so we made some updates to Empire to show how even with something like that, like these open source tools that had been, quote unquote burned, and everyone was like, oh, you got to move on to this next thing because all the EDRs are going to detect you. There was some, relatively light obfuscation that these tools are still effective against those things. And so we submitted it for a talk. We didn't get picked up for a talk, but we got picked up to do a workshop. And so I created a fork for the workshop of Empire because Empire at the time had some typos and stuff that were being in it. Like there was a thing that added a header twice, and those were the core detections that the EDRs were using for Empire to be able to detect it. So we created a fork for the workshop to show people those kinds of things. And it just so happened that was the same month that Spectre Ops decided to no longer support Empire or PowerShell Empire and moved on. So we created the fork. We did our workshop. That went really well. It was very cool. But it turned out that OffSec was using it in OSCP to do training. And so they reached out to us because this was also around when Python finally enforced the 2.7 to 3 transition.
Right.
And so OffSec was like, we can't lose support for Empire. So we'll come in and you guys have the most active branch of Empire after they deprecated it. We'll pay you to convert Empire over to Python 3.
So that is an interesting bit of history that I don't think a lot of people know. So OSCP is actually one of the pushes that made Empire what it is today.
Yeah. So we converted it over, and then we kept maintaining it. When we converted it to Python 3, it made a big splash.
I remember that.
And that was like another interesting thing of we happened to release it just on timing wise, the full the official production release of it around a week or two before Christmas, and a bunch of defenders got mad at us about it because that's when it finally went viral. But we'd been pushing stuff out that 99% of that code base had been public in our repo, and we'd been tweeting about it for 3 months ahead of time. It was just all we did was go, okay, we're hitting the button from being in beta to production. And it wasn't until it went viral that people actually started paying attention to us doing that. So it's
I can tell you from my perspective, I had been watching all along.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy that I got to hear the backstory behind this, because I always wondered, I'm like, it's dead. And I was sitting back going, man. And to your point, I think that you hit on one of the biggest things that we really in the industry need to pay attention to. And that's the desire for the new shiny penny. There's a reason that Metasploit is still around. Realistically, anybody and their brother can find signatures for almost every single, utility within Metasploit, but we still use it. And there's something to be said for those old tools that are still here. And I would rather get intimately familiar with a product than almost use it's almost like an agile philosophy of I'm going to use this tool until something else comes along, and they become ephemeral.
On top of that being difficult for certain people to learn and get into the industry on like what tools they should be using, one of the things that we really wanted to focus on is not the US and EU markets. And in order for like somewhere like South America or Southeast Asia or India or wherever to be able to start transitioning their security to a more mature posture, they need to be able to run red team and that kind of stuff, and they can't afford the tools that were
absolutely not.
That are coming out. And while lots of people put out really cool C2s, most of them are being written by red teamers, which has its pros and cons. One of the cons is that a lot of times they're not all that stable, right? For enterprise use, they've got all these quirks that you have to learn how to do and manage. And it turns out you leave an extra space in a field and it can crash the whole server. Like that was a problem that Covenant had.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we really wanted to focus on was building a open source tool that will be stable and long term, so that those kinds of markets can have people that use those tools and learn on those tools and have long-term support.
And that is a very good point. How many C2s out there have come and gone? I mean, there used to be a website. I don't know if it's still active, but I used to check it all the time. It was called Kitploit, Kitploit, and that's where they would basically bulletin board page that went out and looked for offensive tools on GitHub and would basically give them, a little bit of advertisement. And it was like you could get any C2 you wanted. There was the C2 of the day, but there is something to be said about those tools that have managed to survive the test of time. John the Ripper, still in use today. I mean, I remember getting into this back in the Backtrack days. So to see, a tool like the only other one that really comes to my mind that I think has the same kind of weight and stability would be Metasploit. I mean, can you think of anything else that's out there that has been around as long as Empire, open source, and that stable?
No, I mean, it's been a long time now. I was hopeful that Armitage was going to be that way before Cobalt Strike went closed source and was like no longer supporting that tool. But Armitage was around for a little while.
Yeah, I loved Armitage.
Yeah.
And as somebody that used to be a, predominantly Cobalt Strike user, the reason we all used Cobalt Strike was because it didn't have the signatures and we weren't detected. The problem is now everybody's using it. And in my opinion, it's actually not that valuable anymore.
It depends. There's still something to be said about, especially on the junior engineer side, of like being able to have a tool that is just like you open it and it works, right? There's a lot of value to those frameworks. And we talk about detections and stuff, but I still go on a lot of networks where detections are not that good anyway, right?
True. Like, you don't have good controls in place, not necessarily good EDR.
Yeah. That being said, there is some interesting trends of like, a lot of red team stuff nowadays is more on the responder, NTLM, relay, Active Directory side, and you can actually operate almost without a C2 in a lot of cases if you have a jump box that's on the network.
True.
So there's also some trends changing there.
The TTPs are changing. And to that point, one of the only issues, and we talked a little bit about this yesterday, and I just want to throw it out there. I think one of the few things about Empire that I would like to see is more back-end integration with AI, which, you said that there may be a professional enterprise version coming out, potentially, maybe?
Correct. It's a tool that right now we're calling Synaptic. We haven't started selling it yet, still in development. What it's going to be is a hook into Empire, so it'll be an AI controller for
Okay.
or AI ML. Anthony hates the term AI.
I do too.
Yeah,
I really do.
It's not really AI. That's a whole different discussion for another day. But
we in every single one of these interviews, I'm like, okay, the fact that we use AI to mean AI, MML, or excuse me, ML, LLM, we just throw it into the catch-all, but it's good for this conversation.
Yeah, but it's going to be a controller for that. So like when we talk about like an enterprise tool, one thing that I do want to hit on is that we're very dedicated to the concept that we will never like paywall Empire capability. Like, so like implants, that kind of stuff, that we're not going to paywall that's going to be awesome. that will be in the tool. What we're selling is a controller that'll be more for enterprise and for blue teams to run. Like, it's basically going to be a more advanced like breach and attack simulation tool. So think like, things like Scythe and those kinds of tools that allow a blue team to test like, how are our controls doing against these new things that came out?
Yeah, this is going to be for literal enterprise. This isn't going to be for, your community users who are just trying to work on offensive security.
Right. And like I said, it's not going to be new offensive capability. That capability will always remain in Empire, and that we're not going to paywall that. So,
and I want to say, I think that is very, very good to know, because it shows integrity within the product and the commitment to the open source and the community. So I think that's awesome. The only other thing, like I said, and I can't be the only one that thinks this way, I wish we could get more cross-platform attack capabilities out of Empire. And you said that there's a way to, feature request. Just let me know where that is, and I'm going to start just, setting up an automation that every day, about 50 times a day. It's like, we need to be able to attack Linux. We need to attack mainframes. We need it all. I would love to see Empire turn into the next version of Metasploit almost.
Not only is that like interesting, because we're totally down for doing development on that, but I will say, like, we get lots of questions from people about like, how can I get involved in the community or in Empire or that kind of thing. One of the most valuable things to us is feedback. And despite how many people are using Empire, we actually don't get a lot of direct feedback unless we meet someone at a conference that says like, hey, I love your product. And, here's the things that I do. And we go, well, what else would you like to see? So people actually going and putting up discussions, whether it's on our Discord or on the Empire projects, GitHub, or those kinds of things, are actually super valuable to us. So even if someone can come in and say, maybe they don't know how to fit, like they're brand new to the community and they find bugs in Empire, but they're not advanced yet enough to figure out how to do it. Just getting those bug reports are super valuable to us, because we don't know it's there if someone's not telling us. Because we occasionally, like when we go to upgrade capabilities and stuff, we occasionally find bugs that have been there for 2 years, because we updated it, and no one ever told us. And then and then it turns out someone knew. Yeah. And so like the more feedback we can get, like that's a really great way for people to start getting involved and that kind of stuff into the community.
And if I may say, I think that's a big part of open source, communities that, we as the users of these tools need to accept. If we want these tools to be as solid and consistent as they are, it's our responsibility as users of these applications to give this information back to the programmers. So that's my challenge and my request to the community. If you're going to use these types of products, and it's not just Empire, any type of open source product, any type of communication in terms of positive, negative, bugs, anything, that is going to be what these people need to get in order to continue moving the tools that we're using forward. So I think that was a great point to make. So as far as BC Security and Empire, what are you guys doing coming up? Anything new? I mean, I know you'll be at DEF CON.
Yeah, so we'll be at DEF CON, we'll be at Black Hat. We've got training courses we're doing on the BC Security side for that. But before we, one thing I do want to hit on is one of the things we started moving for in Empire as an open source project is like as part of 6.0 that came out back March, April timeframe, we introduced what we're calling the marketplace, similar to Sliver's Armory type of thing, but we're trying to build it in a way that Empire is going to be a development framework for people, so that now people can publish their own capabilities and use the marketplace that'll allow everyone to download it without us needing to manage the repos for them, so that you have like a consistent user interface, so that and people can help get integrated into it.
See, I think I see this as a great thing and a potential dangerous thing all at the same time. Is there going to be anybody from the BC security side doing any type of validation on these, or is it going to just be a hosting place? Because I mean, like I said, I'm always jaded by my past, and as a criminal, I'm thinking, wow, if I can get something into one of these plugins, what if I could, find a way to siphon data that's being used in an engagement to offsort and kind of exfiltrate to me? So that would be the only thing that I would ask.
Yeah, so we'll have we built it kind of both.
Okay.
Both. So there's gonna be our official marketplace where we'll have stuff that has been vetted, but it supports the ability to just point to a different like GitHub, because how it works is it's a GitHub repo with a registry that then points to other stuff.
Understood.
So like if someone wants to host stuff that's not a part of our repo, they can still use it, which is maybe not. Hopefully, everyone on the open source side is going to be using the official repo for the reasons you said, but it allows other teams that maybe want to develop like private capabilities to then hook into a private repo and pull their capabilities
and I
down.
think this is absolutely great. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring that up was just, if it goes without saying, anything that you're going to do on the internet, be aware of your surroundings, do some code validation before you import somebody's code, check hashes, don't be a victim. Especially when these guys are trying to set us up for success, but never underestimate the power of evil people behind a screen.
Yeah.
So with that, anything else you want to throw out there? Your contact information, because it's about to get time where there's going to be some alcohol and we're going to talk about some war stories.
No, I think that's the big one. We're really excited about the Synaptic tool.
I'm excited about that.
And so something that we are developing that I'll put out there that we just did an open source workshop on this that everyone can go look at, and it's posted on our YouTube channel. I just did an open source workshop on how to hack airplanes. And when I say hack airplanes, I know lots of people get a little jaded because there's stuff out there about hacking like the infotainment systems and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Anthony actually built a mil standard 1553 simulator, so it's just kind of producing the same outputs. It doesn't work like 1553 bus, but it's actually like the bus protocol hacking of like an airplane. Boy. So it's like in the weeds, like hacking of an airplane. And we're looking at offering some more stuff like that. So if we get feedback from people that are interested,
feedback, we want more of this.
We'll do more workshops. We'll do that kind of stuff because it's a very cool.
Well, if there's any way I can help promote this, I've got your back. I really appreciate what BC Security has done. I appreciate what you've done for us, and I'm excited to hear. Tell me some stories from the field, my friend.
Okay, so I've got a couple. One we'll do. The first one is a red teaming one. One's a development on Empire one that'll be a little funny. So the first one is probably, I think everyone has a story like this of. I was on an op and I accidentally took down a customer's like entire operational server at one point. That's usually non-destructive is in the top lines of the scope, bro. I still maintain this one wasn't my fault. It was, so we were doing an API test for them. And I found out that, they had multiple tenants in their system, and I was able to dump the whole tenants list. There we go. Tenants list, and saw that there were some like other, commercial users. And I was like, I wonder what happens if I make a cross tenant request. And I made the cross tenant request just to see like if, that's normal in API testing to say, it'd be like, oh, do my credentials work for someone else's tenant?
It's basically getting the lay of the land.
And all I got back was an error, like a server error. Like it just said like, hey, like the request wasn't valid kind of thing. So I didn't think anything of it. And then about 12 hours later, I got a very angry phone call from the customer about how I had broke like the entire server that I had made a request to. So
I agree. That one wasn't your fault. If you don't have your API stack configured correctly, that's not on you, man.
Yeah.
So tell me about the programming one.
Okay. So going back to your point of reviewing the code that you're using. So back when we first started doing development on Empire, I was still relatively and going back to the red teamers write most C2s, and we're not very good at like software development processes and that kind of stuff.
We're like, just give me something that works.
That works, yeah. So I was making some updates to the PowerShell agent in Empire. And as part of that, like to do the agent side, it's really hard to kind of do like debugging because it's running as an implant in memory. So like it's not like a on the server side we can run like PyCharm or something and do debugging. So I made some stuff that was printing to disk to like in the C drive to
I can see this is not going to end well
to output. And so I finally got everything fixed and all that kind of stuff, and we published it and pushed it to the open source. And then about 2 months later, I realized that I never took the functions that we're writing to disk out, and no one said anything to us. So I don't know if no one was actually using our stuff on an op or like what was...
People are just not paying attention.
Like, or what was going on. But for about 2 months in like 2018, there was like a period where everything in the agent was being written to a log in the C drive for people. So,
well, if you're still running a system from 2018 that you were running Empire on, this is one of those, hidden gems that you may want to go look for because God only knows what would be in those logs. Those are some good stories. That's definitely worth the bourbon, man.
Yeah. Oh, well, if you want one about not following ROEs, that's another one. So like when I was in the military, we used to do what we call nowadays purple teaming exercises, where blue's on one side, red's on one side, then you have like white cell that's the in between, between that's running everything. And we were running on some ranges that like had like some sensitivities to them, and so we had ROEs. And I get a call in the middle of the test, and it was supposed to be like a week-long test. In the middle of the test, and I was the red team lead, and they called me and said, "Hey, blue's going to do this thing." And I was like, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but they were going to run something that was going to have like a semi-destructive impact, but they said they could revert it. And I was like, that's against the ROEs. We're absolutely not doing that. Or blue team called me, not white team. So blue team called me. I told them no go, like we're not doing that. It's against ROEs. White cell calls me about 30 minutes later and says, "Hey, they're going to do it anyway." They broke the range for 4 days, like when they did it, and so we got no output out of that exercise. That was after I had allowed my team to respond like 10 minutes early to like a red team. Like I was on the defender side of the red infrastructure, and we had responded a little bit early on our hunting thing, and they made me stand up in front of like both squadrons and give a briefing as to why we had screwed up. And then the blue guys did that, and they were like, "Oh, it's like, okay, it's not a big deal." And that might be the most angry I've ever been at someone during a career thing.
Yeah, that ain't cool. Yeah. If you got called out on the carpet, for just sending a message a little early, and they can take down the entire cyber range for 4 days and get away with it, that just goes to show that the blue team guys always do better than the red teamers, man. And on that note, Cheers, brother.
Thank you.
Thanks for
having
stopping by.
Me on. Yeah.
Really appreciated the conversation. Again, BC Security, Empire, one of the greatest tools out there. If you haven't tried it, check it out. Check out BC Security at DEF CON and all the other events. And until next time, cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.